party went on for days. The morning of the third day, people were still sprawled about the grounds when JP and I sneaked our rucksacks out with a few choice groceries and started down the road in the orange early morning sun of California golden days. It was going to be a great day. We were back in our element, trails. JP was in high spirits. God damn it. It feels good to get away from dissipation and go in the woods. When I get back from Japan, Ray, when the weather gets really cold, we'll put on our long underwear and hitchhike through the land. Think if you can, of ocean to mountain, Alaska to climate, a solid forest of fir to Biku and a lake of million wild geese. Woo! You know what wu means in Chinese? What? Fog. These woods are great here in Marin. I'll show you Muir Woods today, but up north is all that real old Pacific Coast mountain and ocean land, the future home of the Dharma body. Know what I'm gonna do? I'll do a new long poem called Rivers and Mountains Without End, and just write it on and on a scroll and unfold it on and on with new surprises and always what went before forgotten. See, like a river, or like one of them real long Chinese silk paintings that show two little men hiking in an endless escape of gnarled trees and mountains so high they merged with the fog in the upper silk void. I'll spend 3,000 years writing it. It'll be packed full of information on soil conservation, the Tennessee Valley Authority, astronomy, geology, Swan Sung's travels, Chinese painting theory, reforestation, oceanic ecology, and food chains. Go to it, boy. As ever, I strode on behind him, and when we began to climb with our packs feeling good on our backs, as though we were pack animals and didn't feel right without a burden, it was that same old lonesome, old thwop up the trail, slowly, a mile an hour. We came to the end of the steep road where we had to go through a few houses built near steep bushy cliffs with waterfalls trickling down, then up to a high steep meadow full of butterflies and hay and a little 7 a.m. dew, and down to a dirt road, then to the end of the dirt road, which rose higher and higher till we could see vistas of Corte Madera and Mill Valley far away, and even the red top of Golden Gate Bridge. Tomorrow afternoon on our run to Stimson Beach, said JP, you'll see the whole white city of San Francisco miles away in the blue bay. Ray, by God, later on in our future life, we can have a fine freewheeling tribe in these California hills, get girls and have dozens of radiant enlightened brats live like Indians and Hogans and eat berries and buds. No beans? We'll write poems. We'll get a printing press and print our own poems, the Dharma press. We'll poetize the lot and make a fat book of icy bombs for the booby public. The public ain't so bad. They suffer too. You always read about some tar paper shack burning somewhere in the Middle West with 3 little children perishing, and you see a picture of the parents crying. Even the kitty was burned. JP, do you think God made the world to amuse himself because he was bored? Because if so, he would have to be mean. Oh, who do you mean by God? Just Tathagata, if you will. Well, it says in the sutra that God, or Tathagata, doesn't himself emanate a world from his womb, but it just appears due to the ignorance of sentient beings. But he emanated sentient beings, and their ignorance too. It's all too pitiful. I ain't gonna rest till I found out why, JP. Why? Don't trouble your mind essence. Remember that in pure Tathagata, mind essence there is no asking of the question why, and not even significance to it, attached to it. Well, then nothing's really happening then. He threw a stick at me and hit me on the foot. Well, that didn't happen, I said. I really don't know, Ray, but I appreciate your sadness about the world. Tis indeed. Look at that party the other night. Everybody wanted to have a good time and tried real hard, but we all woke up in the next day feeling sort of sad and separate. What do you think about that, about death, Ray? I think death is our reward. When we die, we go straight to Nirvana heaven, and that's that. But supposing you're reborn in the lower hells and have red hot balls of iron shoved down your throat by devils. Life's already shoved an iron foot down my mouth, But I don't think that's anything but a dream cooked up by some hysterical monks who didn't understand Buddha's peace under the Bo tree, or for that matter, Christ's peace looking down on the heads of his tormentors and forgiving them. You really like Christ, don't you? Of course I do. And after all, a lot of people say he is Maitreya, the Buddha prophesied to appear after Sakyamuni. You know, Maitreya means love in Sanskrit, and that's all Christ talked about was love. Oh, don't start preaching Christianity to me. I can just see you on your deathbed kissing the cross like some old Karamazov, or like our old friend Dwight Goddard, who spent his life as a Buddhist and suddenly returned to Christianity in his last days. That's not for me. I want to spend hours every day in a lonely temple meditating in front of a sealed statue of Kwannon, which no one is ever allowed to see because it's too powerful. Strike hard, old diamond. It'll all come out in the wash. You remember Roel Sturluson, my buddy who went to Japan to study those rocks of Ryoanji? He went over on a freighter named Sea Serpent, so he painted a big mural of a sea serpent and mermaids on a bulkhead in the mess hall, to the delight of the crew who dug him like crazy and all wanted to become Dharma bums right there. Now he's climbing up Holy Mount Hie in Kyoto, through a foot of snow probably, straight up where there are no trails, steep, through bamboo thickets and twisty pine like in brush drawings, feet wet and lunch forgot. That's the way to climb. What are you going to wear in the monastery anyway? Oh man, the works. Old Tang Dynasty style things, long back black floppy and huge droopy sleeves and funny pleats, make you feel real Oriental. Alva says that while guys like us are all excited about being real Orientals and wearing robes, actual Orientals over there are reading surrealism and Charles Darwin and mad about Western business suits. East will meet West anyway. Think what a great world revolution will take place when East meets West finally, and it'll be guys like us that can start the thing. Think of millions of guys all over the world with rucksacks on their backs, tramping around the backcountry and hitchhiking and bringing the word down to everybody. That's a lot like the early days of the Crusades. Walter the Penniless and Peter the Hermit leading ragged bands of believers to the Holy Land. Yeah, but that was all such European gloom and crap. I want Dharma bums to have springtime in their hearts when the blooms are girling and the birds are dropping little fresh turds, surprising cats who wanted to eat them a moment ago. What are you thinking about? Just making up poems in my head as I climb toward Mount Tamalpais. See up there ahead? As beautiful a mountain as you'll see anywhere in the world. A beautiful shape to it. I really love Tamalpais. We'll sleep tonight, way around the back of it. Take us till late afternoon to get there. The Marin country was much more rustic and kindly than the rough Sierra country we'd climbed last fall. It was all flowers, trees, bushes, but also a great deal of poison oak by the side of the trail. When we got to the end of the high dirt road, we suddenly plunged into the dense redwood forest and went along following a pipeline through glades that were so deep the fresh morning sun barely penetrated, and it was cold and damp. But the odor was pure, deep, rich pine and wet logs. JP was all talk this morning. He was like a little kid again now that he was out on the trail. The only thing wrong with that monastery shot in Japan for me is though for all their intelligence and good intentions, the Americans out there, they have so little real sense of America and who the people are who really dig Buddhism here, and they don't have any use for poetry. Who? Well, the people who are sending me out there and finance things. They spend their good money fixing elegant scenes of gardens and books and Japanese architecture and all that crap, which nobody will like or be able to use anyways but rich American divorcees on Japanese cruises. And all they really should do is just build or buy an old Jap house and vegetable garden and have a place there for cats to hang out and be Buddhist. I mean, I have a real flower of something and not just the usual American middle class bug up with appearances. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Oh boy, I can just see myself in the morning sitting on the mats with a low table at my side, typing on my portable, and my hibachi nearby with a pot of hot water on it, keeping hot, and all my papers and maps and pipe, and the flashlight neatly packed away in outside plum trees and pines with snow on the boughs, and up on Mount Hyazin, the snow getting deep and sooty and hinoki, and all around, them's redwoods, boy, and cedars. Little tucked away temples down the rocky trails, cold, mossy ancient places where frogs croak, and inside small statues and hanging buttery lamps, and gold lotuses and paintings, and ancient incense-soaked smells and lacquered chests with statues. His boat was leaving in 2 days. But I'm sad, too, about leaving California. So why I wanted to take one last long look at it today with you, Ray? Oh, so I wanted to take one last long look at it today with you, Ray. We came up out of the glady redwood forest onto a road where there was a mountain lodge, then crossed the road and dipped down again through bushes to a trail that probably nobody even knew was there except a few hikers. And we were in Muir Woods. It extended, a vast valley, for miles before us. An old logger road led us for 2 miles. Then Jaffe got off and scrambled up the slope and got onto another trail nobody dreamed was there. We hiked on this one, up and down along the tumbling creek, with fallen logs again, where you crossed the creek, and sometimes bridges that had been built, Jaffe said, by the Boy Scouts, trees sawed in half the flat surface for walking. Then we climbed up a steep pine slope and came out to the highway and went up the side of the hill of grass and came out in some outdoor theater, done up Greek style, with stone seats all around a bare stone arrangement for 4-dimensional presentations of Aeschylus and Sophocles. We drank water and sat down and took our shoes off and watched the silent play from the upper stone seats. Far away you could see the Golden Gate Bridge and the whiteness of San Francisco. Jaffe began to shriek and hoot and whistle and sing, full of pure gladness. Nobody around to hear him. This is the way you'll be on top of Mount Desolation this summer, Ray. I'll sing at the top of my voice for the first time in my life. If anybody hears you, it'll just be the Conies, or maybe a critic there. Ray, that Skagit country where you're going is the greatest place in America. That snaky river running back through gorges and into its own unpeopled watershed, wet snowy mountains fading into dry pine mountains, and deep valleys like Beaver and Little Beaver with some of the best virgin stands of red cedar left in the world. I keep thinking of my abandoned Crater Mountain lookout house, sitting up there with nobody but the Conies and the howling winds, getting old, the Conies down in their furry nests deep under boulders, and warm eating seeds or whatever they eat. The closer you get to real matter, rock, air, fire, and wood, boy, the more spiritual the world is. All these people thinking they're hard-headed, materialistic, practical types, they don't know shit about matter. Their heads are full of dreamy ideas and notions. He raised his hand. Listen to that quail calling. I wonder what everybody's doing back at Sean's. Well, they're all up now, and starting on that sour old red wine again, and sitting around talking nothing. They should have all come with us and learned something. He picked up his pack and started off. In a half hour, we were in a beautiful meadow, following a dusty little trail over shallow creeks, and finally we were at Potrero Meadows Camp. It was a national forest camp, with a stone fireplace and picnic tables and everything, but no one would be there till the weekend. A few miles away, the lookout shack on top of Tamalpais looked right down on us. We undid our packs and spent a quiet late afternoon dozing in the sun, or Jaffe ran around looking at butterflies and birds and making notes in his notebook, and I hiked alone down the other side, north, where a desolate rock country, much like the Sierras, stretched out toward the sea. One moment, it's not done yet. Not sure why it's dripping. At dusk, Jaffe lit a big fire and started supper. We were very tired and happy. He made a soup that night that I shall never forget, and was really the best soup I'd eaten since I was a lionized young author in New York, eating lunch at the Chambord or in Henry Crew's kitchen. This was nothing but a couple of envelopes of dried pea soup thrown into a pot of water with fried bacon, fat and all, and stirred till boiling. It was rich, real pea taste, with that smoky bacon and bacon fat. Just the thing to drink in the cold gathering darkness by the sparkling fire. Also, while poking about, he'd found puffballs, natural mushrooms, not the umbrella type, just round grapefruit-sized puffs of white firm meat, and these he sliced and fried in bacon fat, and we had them on the side with fried rice. It was a great supper. We washed the dishes in the gurgling creek. The roaring bonfire kept the mosquitoes away. A new moon peeked down through the pine boughs. We rolled out our sleeping bags in the meadow grass and went to bed early, bone weary. Well, Ray, said Jaffe, pretty soon I'll be far out to sea and you'll be hitchhiking up the coast to Seattle and on through the Skagit country. I wonder what'll happen to all of us. We went to sleep on this dreamy theme. During the night, I had a vivid dream, one of the most distinct dreams I ever had. I clearly saw a crowded, dirty, smoky Chinese market with beggars and vendors and pack horses and mud and smoky pots and piles of rubbish and vegetables for sale in dirty clay pans on the ground, and suddenly from the mountains a ragged hobo, a little seamed down, brown and unimaginable Chinese hobo, had come down and was just standing at the end of the market, surveying it with an expressionless humor. He was short, wiry, his face leathered hard and dark red by the sun of the desert and the mountains. His clothes were nothing but gathered rags. He had a pack of leather on his back. He was barefooted. I had seen guys like that only seldom, and only in Mexico, maybe coming into Monterey out of those stark rock mountains. Beggars could probably live in caves. But this one was a Chinese twice as poor, twice as tough, an infinitely mysterious tramp, and it was Jaffe for sure. It was the same broad mouth, merry, twinkling eyes, bony face, a face like Dostoevsky's death mask, with prominent eyebrow bones and square head, and he was short and compact like Jaffe. I woke up at dawn thinking, wow, is that what'll happen to Jaffe? Maybe he'll leave that monastery and just disappear and we'll never see him again, and he'll be the Han Shan ghost of the Orient Mountains, and even the Chinese will be afraid of him. He'll be so raggedy and beat. I told Jaffe about it. He was already up stoking the fire and whistling. Well, don't just lay there in your sleeping bag, pulling your pudding. Get up and fetch some water. Yodelahee-hoo, Ray. Ray, I will bring you incense sticks from the cold water temple of Kiyomizu, and set them one by one in a big brass incense bowl, and do the proper bows. How's about that? That was some dream you had. If that's me, then it's me. Ever weeping, ever youthful, who? He got out the hand axe from the rucksack and hammered at bows and got a crackling fire going. There was still mist in the trees and fog on the ground. Let's pack up and take off a dig Laurel Dell camp. Then we'll hike over the trails down to the sea and swim. Great. On this trip, Jaffe had brought along a delicious combination for hiking energy. Rye crisp crackers, good sharp cheddar cheese, a wedge of that, and a roll of salami. He had this for breakfast with hot fresh tea and felt great. 2 grown men could live 2 days on that concentrated bread and that salami, concentrated meat, and cheese, and the whole thing only weighed about 1.5 pounds. Jaffe was full of great ideas like that. What hope, what human energy, what truly American optimism was packed in that neat little frame of his. There he was clumping along in front of me on the trail and shouting back, "Try the meditation of the trail. Just walk along looking at the trail at your feet, and don't look about and just fall into the trance as the ground zips by." We arrived at Laurel Dell Camp at about 10. It was also supplied with stone fireplaces with grates, the picnic tables, but the surroundings were infinitely more beautiful than Potrero Meadows. Here were the real meadows, dreamy beauties with soft grass sloping all around, fringed by heavy, deep green timber, the whole scene of waving grass and brooks and nothing in sight. By God, I'm gonna come back here and bring nothing but food and gasoline and the Primus and cooked suppers smokeless, and the Forest Service won't even know the difference. Yeah, but if they ever catch you cooking away from these stone places, they'd put you out, Smith. But what would I do on weekends? Join the merry picnickers? I'd just hide up there beyond that beautiful meadow. I'd stay there forever. And you'd only have 2 miles of trail down to Stimson Beach and your grocery store down there. At noon, we started for the beach. It was a tremendously grinding trip. We climbed way up high on meadows, where again we would see San Francisco far away, then dipped down into the steep trail that seemed to fall directly down to sea level. You had sometimes to run down the trail or slide on your back one. A torrent of water fell down at the side of the trail. I went ahead of Jaffe and began swinging down the trail so fast, singing happily. I left him behind about a mile and had to wait for him at the bottom. He was taking his time enjoying the ferns and flowers. We stashed our rucksacks in the fallen leaves under the bushes and hiked freely down the sea meadows and past seaside farmhouses with cows browsing to the beach community, where we bought wine in a grocery store and stomped on out into the sand and the waves. It was a chill day with only occasional flashes of sun, but we were making it. We jumped into the ocean in our shorts and swam swiftly around, then came out and spread out some of our salami and rye crisp and cheese on a piece of paper in the sand and drank wine and talked. At one point, I even took a nap. Jaffe was feeling very good. God damn it, Ray. You'll never know how happy I am we decided to have these last 2 days hiking. I feel good all over again. I know something good's gonna come out of all this. All what? I don't know. Out of the way we feel about life. You and I ain't about to bust anybody's skull or cut someone's throat in an economic way. We've dedicated ourselves to prayer for all sentient beings, and when we're strong enough, we'll really be able to do it too, like the old saints. Who knows, the world might wake up and burst out into the beautiful flower of Dharma everywhere. After dozing a while, he woke up and looked and said, "Look at all that water out there, stretching all the way to Japan." He was getting sadder and sadder about leaving.